Hello everyone, I'm Said. In this video, we are going to talk about Entity Framework migration, how we can create migrations in our ASP.NET project, how we can manage them. This is going to be a series of videos. I will create a playlist for it, so don't miss them. First of all, we are going to start with the create migration in our project. In this video, I create a structure for the project, the sample project. So we have an API layer, domain, and infrastructure. You can call it as a repository or data layer, everything related to your database access. I'm going to show you step by step how we can add migrations and also create our database. When we say entities, the place for entities is in domain layer. So let's start with adding the first entities. Here, let's call it blog. Okay. So this blog has primary key called ID and a name. That's it. I think it's enough. We have our entity, our first entity. What else we can do for create migrations? The entry point for migrations or for entity framework, DB context, having an object called DB context. But we need to install a set of packages. So let's just start with first one, which called entity framework. If you search here, so we have entity framework and another one, Microsoft.entity framework core, because we are using .NET Core, or after .NET 5 is the same, we need to use the second one, Microsoft.entity framework core. So let's install it. Yes, I accept. Now we have the package entity framework core version 7. Okay, so now we need the DB context object. Let's add a class called app DB context. Okay, and here we need to inherit from this object DB context in the entity framework core namespace. Okay. Another thing that we need is the constructor. So let's add the constructor, and in the constructor we need to pass DB context options, which accept our instance, our class. Let's call it options, and we need to send it to the actual constructor of the DB context, because this one is actually all the related information about our database or how we can manage our database. So it's okay, good. Now we need to add our entity as a DB set here. So our entity is blog and blogs. We can call the table names blogs. By default, when you don't specify any other configuration, entity framework will take this name as a table name. Okay. Yes, you can set the custom table name for this one. There is another lot of ways to do that, but here we are going for this one. Okay, because only we want to focus on the migrations. Okay, nice. So we have a DB context and we have an entity. Now, what else for creating the migrations? There is two ways to create the migrations. First, we can run some commands from the package manager console in the Visual Studio, or with the command line, for example, in PowerShell. And in this video, I'm going to cover both of them. So, but for running the migrations or creating migrations, we need another package, Entity Framework. Maybe we can find it here. Tools. Yep, this is the first one. We need this one. This package, Tools, is only need if we want to use the running migrations from the Visual Studio. If we want to use the PowerShell, it doesn't need to install it, but we need it right now. Okay, another one is, okay, we are going to create migrations, but for which database? Another important things, because, okay, Entity Framework is an ORM, which means we are using the EF core for query on our database. But which database? There is a lot of database, relational database, NoSQL database. For now, I'm going to use the SQL Server database. I'm going to install the SQL Server here, Microsoft Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. There is a lot of other providers. You can check them for the Postgres or for SQLite, everything. So let's install this package as well. Okay, we have the Tools, SQL Server, and Entity Framework Core. So far, so good. But we need another package. When we are talking about creating migrations, there is two different projects here. Okay, we have infrastructure and we have API. When we are talking about executing the commands, it means there should be an application that will execute those commands. Okay, so we need an executable application, or here is an executable project. But our infrastructure or our domain are class libraries. Class libraries are not executable. I mean, the output of these classes will be something like DLL. But the only project here is API that is executable. Okay, what I mean? I mean, for running this set of commands for creating or managing migrations, we need to point to a project that is executable. For this reason, we need to install another package here for handling those commands, which called, this one, Entity Framework Core.Design. Should be in the executable project. So in this case, should be in the API. When we are talking about the creating migrations, so Entity Framework will create a set of files. So now we need a place to save those files. Best place is saving in the infrastructure project. So usually is putting the migrations near this DB context. Okay, it will create automatically by the Entity Framework. Let's see. So here, first approach is using the package manager console. The default project is the place for putting or putting migrations, and also reading all the configuration for the entities. Okay, and also we need to set a startup project. Okay, another things, let me run the add migration actually. So let's put a name for it. we will get an error, and then after we will fix it. Okay, error said unable to create an object of type app_dbcontext. Why? We are setting the default project as an infrastructure, which means Entity Framework can access to our DB context here, but the executable project is our API. Okay, but now he is saying that, okay, but I cannot find any object of your DB context to read your properties, your options, your entities. What we can do here, we need to register our DB context into the DI services, DB context. We need to pass our app DB context. We need to pass the options. Okay, this is actually the options that we are passing here. That's the reason for having DB context options. Okay, now we can use the only things that for the at least we need to specify our database, which database we are using. So in this case, we are using SQL Server. So we need to use SQL Server. Okay, and we need to pass the connection string here. We have a connection string in our app setting here, MS SQL. Only things that we need to read it from the configuration here, configuration.get connection string, and our name is MS SQL. Okay, done. We are done here for now. You can use a lot of other configuration, but enough here for creating migrations. Okay, let's run the command again. Yeah, so it read all of those configuration for the entity, and Entity Framework Core detected this blogs table for create. Okay, this one is the primary key, and also this is the name of our block. So why envarchar max? Because we didn't specify the max length for the string. The best practice is always setting the max length for the string properties, because this envarchar max, if you are going to put some index on it for search, you cannot, because SQL Server cannot support the index on the envarchar max properties. We have our migrations. About the structure of the migrations, always we have two methods here, up, down. Up is always will be run when we want to update our database. So this method is actually the new updates for the database, and in any case that we want to roll back or remove any migrations will be executed. I mean, the name is good, I think. Up, down. Up is putting some new changes on the database, and down is removing some applied migration. And in this case, as you can see here, up is create table and down is drop table. Yeah. Okay. Let's update our database. So now we have our migrations. We can create or apply these migrations. Based on our connection string, when we are talking about the applying migrations, we need the connection string, because Entity Framework look for this connection string and will execute these commands against that server. So here I have this connection string. I put the name for the database EF migrations. Okay. So currently here we don't have any database for the EF migrations, and it will create the database for us and then creating all of those entities. Write update dash database. Okay, it's done. And if I refresh the database, yeah, I have the created EF migration. And if I check the tables, there is 2 tables here. First is blog for sure, because this is our entity, has ID and name. But there is another table called __ EF migrations history. This is the default name for keeping history of our migrations. It put the name of the migration and also the product version, which means our entity framework version, which is the 7.0.11. Okay, this table is very important for the entity framework for keep tracking of the migrations. It will always query on this table for checking, okay, which migration is already applied to the database, and if there is some missing in this list of migrations IDs, it will get those files and then apply all of them to your database. By having these migrations, we can create all of these tables. Okay, this was the Visual Studio. Now we want to do these steps by running the command line for the entity framework. Okay, I want to remove this database completely. Delete. And remove these migrations here, because we want to create those migrations again with the command line. Prepare this kind of models and DB context. Now we need to run the command line for the using PowerShell for creating these migrations. Here we saw it. We need a default project as an entry point for the entity framework core. We need to go to this project directory using open folder in File Explorer. We need to run the PowerShell here. If you don't know how I'm doing that, keep Shift and right click. It will show Open PowerShell window here. So now this is our path. First of all, you need to be sure that you are installed the .NET EF tool. Okay, if you are not sure, you can just run this command .NET EF. Then you can see that you already installed it or no. In any case, you can use this command for installing .NET EF, or for updating them, you can use this command. Okay, because I have it already, no need to install. Let's try to create the migrations. So it's somehow is the same, but with a little better naming, I think. So we say .NET EF. Now we are adding migrations. This is the section of migrations. What we are going to do is adding a new migrations, and then we can put a name for it. Okay, but the point is, as here I mentioned, when we are setting this default project, we need another project for executing those commands. Okay, here in the Visual Studio, our API project was running those commands, but here we also need to specify API project as a startup project. Okay, you can pass this one. There is the parameter called startup dash. What we can do is, if I just back to the previous path and then say, I can copy this one, paste it, .api, and actually we need to point to the CS project here. CS project. Okay. Fine. Let's run the project if it's correct. Okay. Created the migrations. Let's check. Yes. Here I can see the migrations file. The generated file is exactly the same. Now let's update the database, which is actually, because this is the first one, it will create the database. So the structure of command is better. I like that. So you say .NET as an entry point, entity framework, migrations, add. So this is for only migrations, for creating, managing everything. But now we are going to run to create database. So now we are working with the database. Now we need to go to the database section and say database update. Run. Okay, it's done. Let's check the database. Refresh. Yes. And tables. Yeah, it's created 2 tables for us, just same as before. For this section, we already created the migrations based on our entities and update the database, create database, and this is the first section of the entity framework migrations in the ASP.NET. Next video, I'm going to talk about the managing migrations, like remove migrations, or in any case, maybe you want to roll back your changes, and this is very important. Maybe in your production project, there is someone, can happen. Someone creates some mistake in the migrations, and you want to remove those migrations. Okay, so until the next video, goodbye.